you just brought up a great point that I see as a huge difference between. I feel like I'm gonna outdate myself, but no, not
You
that
can't outdate me.
I'm not gonna say back in the day, but even I feel like my generation was the last generation where you had to actually have soft skills and talk to people and develop those interpersonal skills from a young age. Because unless you had your own phone, most of the time you got your house phone, you're calling somebody else's house phone. So if you're calling a girl or even calling your homeboy, but especially when you're calling a girl, that's the first time you had to get your sales pitch together. You had to make sure that you're coming across. We'll talk about, being genuine. I want to dive into that as well. But you had to get your, like, hi, Mr. Brown. Like, this is David. It's Jessica. Like, you really had to.
Who?
You had to. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, I'm in fifth grade. I go to school with her. Who's this call? And you're really, that's the first time that you're developing those skills, even from picking up somebody at their house. You couldn't just, text, I'm outside. You got to come in, introduce yourself. Everything's just so different now, where a lot of the kids, they're just so used to DMing, swiping left, swiping right, double tapping. They don't develop those skills to just talk, to read people, body language you mentioned, all these different things. Most of the time you have a conversation with somebody younger and they're looking down, they're kind of intimidated by it. And for whatever reason, now they're advanced in some areas, but this is one, the soft skills and the emotional intelligence. That's something that I see that our kids are really lacking.
It's funny. I don't know where I'm on that, because you learn from everybody in a different way, right? So I say my son is great with TikTok and everything else, and some of it at first you're like, what is this? And then you see this guy who's an influencer. We went one time to see Logan Paul before I even heard his name. He came to New York City. It was like the Beatles arriving. It was pandemonium. And at the time, he was really just doing things on YouTube and making videos. So I was old enough that I could have just said, this is stupid. What is this? But you realize these guys created an industry. So the way they communicate might be different. But that's like, even at my stage, like you get younger people coming into the company and wherever you're working, and they're very, very smart. They can handle a lot more. And some of them are like, hey, I'll handle a CEO problem tomorrow. And you got to reel them in a little bit, but they bring something to the table. And then the only way I think you can be successful is if you can move with those different generations and be open to hearing the way they think and how they communicate. So it's different to you. And it's funny because somebody showed this old picture and it was, here's a family, everybody's looking at their different screens, but they go back to some old black and white photo and it's all of these people holding a newspaper in their face. So they're doing the same thing, but it's like, you know what? It's not totally different. So I always try and, there's a little less of it. It's easier to text somebody. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to coach somebody and say, hey, did you follow up? Oh yeah, I emailed them twice. I didn't hear back from them. Okay. You got to call, make a phone call, go see them. So there's different skills, but like you said, try and learn from what they're great at and then help them on the ones that you think are important.
Now you see why he's a tremendous leader and CEO. The CEO adapting but that's a good point though, because even like as you're in the leadership position, you're adapting your style based on the talent that you have coming in.
Yeah.
So that way your entire team can reach your desired goal. It's almost like in school where now they're implementing different ways every kid may not learn this particular way. So let me figure out some other creative ways to where this young man can learn. And even in your book, you discussed that you got to a certain point where you had to figure out your learning style.
Yeah, that's it. And it is funny because you say like, there's people today who just like, I got no use for math. I got no use for science. And they're going to be super successful probably in something else. So can the schools customize it and help them along the way? I don't know. But as a business, we have to, right? Because if this is your talent pool and this is the generation coming up, you need them to be your future leader. So you're going to have to adapt and go. And it's funny. We have a training tool. It's called Exonify. Not that it's a commercial form, but so it gamifies. Check it out. It gamifies the process of learning. So something that would have been a binder that somebody sat down and flipped through, now they give it a personality, and it's smarter because if they get the answer wrong, it brings them back another time. It gives them tutorial. So it's a game that they're used to seeing, but it's giving them good information. So you're kind of combining both. And that's the kind of stuff that has to keep evolving, because if you keep trying to force them into saying, this is how you got to learn it. And yeah, I did. I always looked at it and said, you think like everybody in school, it comes easy to them, the ones that are doing well, and you don't realize who's doing the work or who's just, somebody's just smarter than you. And that's okay too. But then you got to understand where the things that you're really good at, you can use them to excel. And maybe you're not going to have the highest grades in the class, and that's okay too. You try and talk about that as a parent too, to say you're doing your best, you're doing everything you can, you're trying to get extra help. If your grade comes out to be a C, it is what it is. If you know you did 100%, if you're half-assed and you didn't really study and it turns out to be a B, that's not good either. So you got to be able to push yourself and help everybody to do it at the speed that they're good at.
100%. And one thing I do want to touch on, you said the newspapers back in the day. You are right. I told you I was watching Wall Street.
Yeah.
I was watching the movie Wall Street with, what's the guy? Gecko?
Gordon Gecko.
Gordon Gecko. This is the first time watching
Newsflash,
it.
he's just watching it now.
Last night, literally. And I didn't even finish it, but I saw that in the beginning of the movie, he's walking through the city, and the newspaper, I realized, replaced the phone.
Yeah.
Everybody walking through this. Well, he's walking through and he's glued to the newspaper. So it is the same thing as the phone.
Yeah, a little different, but it's like, we're not that much different, right?
Right.
But we adapt.
And I think that's almost like one of those things that can be seen like across life, where different people, we sometimes highlight our differences, whether it's generation to generation or whether it's just culture to culture, when if we can kind of create and focus on the similarities, then we'd probably be in a much better position.
100%. As I got a little more exposure, like I don't travel other than work travel locally. So even going to that program at Harvard, I said, I consider myself a travel illiterate because I wasn't all over the world. I didn't know all these countries. But getting exposure to people that come from other places, have different religions and different cultures, and hearing them talk with pride about what they do and understanding it. And they're so happy when you take an interest in it to tell you about their customs and everything. It's just very cool. And then you start to see it and notice it in other places. Oh, yeah, I know it's Diwali. That's why there's fireworks going out tonight. It's not somebody shooting off guns, Mm-hmm. And it's something that I appreciate more and more as I go on and reading and listening to different things. It's just cool. It's just open up your mind. But you're right. When you're connecting with people and it's not like, oh, they're a Republican, they're a Democrat or whatever they are. Mm-hmm. They're a good person, taking care of their family, trying to do the right thing. They want a safe place to be.
So we officially are running for office. Dory Caldwell. I'm running for VP. He's running for president. We switched it up. I don't know if I need to wait a couple years. I forget the age, but we'll figure it out.